Hi everyone, Stepan here. Today I'm gonna try to answer a question I've been getting a lot. People keep asking me, I'm rated this high, should I play the Sicilian? This is my rating, what should I play? Should I play the King's Indian if I'm 1500? Should I play the King's Gambit if I'm 900? I'm going to try to answer all of those questions and more. So how do you choose your openings based on your rating, on your elo rating? To answer that question, we're going to have to answer several more detailed questions. But the first thing I would like to say is you should play whatever you want. Okay, everything I'm about to tell you is going to be my recommendation. If there is something you like playing, you should play that and look no further, seek no answers. If you find something enjoyable, play it, whether it's the Latvian Gambit or 20 moves of Thierry in the Roy Lopez. Whatever your rating is, this is the most important factor, I feel. But here's a more detailed answer and the principle I've been applying. Okay, so let's start. The first thing we should answer is, what sorts of positions do you enjoy? Personally, if you've seen my videos, you'll know that against most e4 players, I will choose the Caro-Kann. Why? Because I enjoy slow positions. So we get a position like this, in which I play the card of Caro-Kann, and now my strategic goal is to develop my bishop. My strategic goal is to get a good position, to equalize, and then get an endgame in which I'm going to have a slight edge. Okay, I have a friend who enjoys wild positions, so against e4 he's gonna go c5 every time and try to complicate things. Against knight f3, knight c6, in the Rossolimo he's gonna go e6 and get a double-edged position where he most likely takes with the b pawn, plays d5, and gets wild positions. So what types of positions do you enjoy? If you're an e4 player and they go e5, if you like wild and crazy, then, you know, play the King's Gambit. If you don't like wild and crazy, then play knight f3. So that's the first question. Choose your openings based on whether you like dynamic play, static play, whether you like to target small weaknesses and go for the end game, or whether you like a wild kingside attack starting on move 5. And you can get a lot of information about different openings. You can find a bunch of playlists on my channel. I would say if you like dynamic chess, play e4 as white, play the Sicilian against e4, and against d4, play knight f6 on move 1 and either go for a Benoni, a Benko, or a King's Indian. And against Reti/English type systems, try to do the same thing. So go either into the King's Indian or a Benoni or a Benko if allowed. Many times that's going to transpose. If you like strategic stuff, against e4, choose either e5, e6, or c6. I think they can all be steered into somewhat static territory. And against d4, c4, and knight f3, choose a symmetrical type of position. So when you have symmetry early on, that means that there aren't that many imbalances and that most likely the position is not going to be completely open very early on. Now, the second question we have to answer is, how much do you know? What do I mean by that? How much do you know about openings in general and about specific openings? If you understand the structure, let's say you understand the Carlsbad structure pretty well. So, for example, d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, takes, bishop g5, c6. Okay, and let's say e3. Now, this is the Carlsbad structure. And in this structure, white should play for b4, b5. That's one of the plans. It's called the minority attack. And if you are familiar with that, if you know that much, then it makes sense to do this, because strategically you're going to be better out of the openings, opening against opponents who don't understand that. Now, if you do that with white, well, then it makes sense to try and do it with black too. Play the Caro-Kann. And if we get an exchange Caro-Kann, basically, after e6, this is the Carlsbad structure in reverse. Let's say bishop d3, knight c6, c3, knight f6, bishop g4, let's say here, and after this, e6. This is the same structure as the one before. So again, the Carlsbad pawn structure. Here with white, we had it from the Queen's Gambit declined. With black, we had it from the Caro-Kann. So if you have some knowledge of some strategic and positional ideas, choose your structures based on that. Now, this is an example in the repertoire I play. If you play the Benko, for example, if you are a wild and crazy player and you want to play wild and crazy stuff, and you understand stuff in the Benko pretty well, you understand how to use this diagonal, how to use the A and B files after you've given up a pawn. Well, you can do this with white and black. Why wouldn't you consider playing C4 and move 1 and then B4 at some point? It may not be completely sound, but based on how much you know, it could be a good idea to follow your knowledge into a rating increase. Now, before I continue with the video, I would like to thank Chessbook who are sponsoring today's video. Once you've decided on your opening repertoire, it's time to study it, and Chessbook is a great way to do that. Chessbook is a tool that allows you to study your repertoire in an easy and understandable and actually fun way. It's easy to navigate, it's easy to use, even for me. And if you know me at all, you'll know that I'm not comfortable with anything online or technical related, and anything that requires any technical knowledge. So what can we do with Chessbook? Chessbook allows you to import and study your repertoire. It's as simple as that. You can import the repertoire by hand. You can import it. You can do it by importing a PGN. Then what you can do is you can practice the moves you've imported. It's going to be focusing on the mistakes you make. It's going to quiz you on the stuff you don't know. You can connect your Lichess and or chess.com online accounts and review the mistakes in your games. Now, I did all of mine, but I'm betting you'll have some to cover. And it's going to give you model games in your repertoire, which you can go through and study. So for example, let's say I want to add something else in my Caro-Kann repertoire. So recently, I've been thinking of coming back to e6 against the fantasy. So in this position, people play knight c3, I play bishop b4, and they should go bishop f4. And in this position, I want to go knight e7. Let's keep adding the moves. They're going to go queen d3, and now my plan is b6. This is a bad bishop, so my prep involves getting rid of this bishop. They go knight e2, I go bishop a6, and now my goal is to take anything, either the knight on e2 or the bishop on f1, and just get rid of this bishop. So let's say black castles, white castles, queen side. Okay, and now I can go knight g6, I can go c5, I can go knight d7, I can take on e2. Let's say I save the moves to my repertoire. And now what you can do is you can practice these moves. Okay, so c6. Okay, I have some other stuff in my repertoire. So, okay, I'm guessing I have e5 and I have other stuff. Okay, but let's get into the fantasy. So e6, bishop to b4. Okay, knight e7 was my move. b6, bishop a6, knight d7, or should I castle? Okay, why did they? I can castle straight away. Okay, and e5. So what you can do is you can import the repertoire by hand or you can do it by importing a PGN. And this is how I do it most of the time. I'm gonna go just import PGN and choose a PGN file from my laptop and then just do it like that. But the most important thing is it focuses on your mistake. And the last tournament I played, I actually used Chessbook to prepare for each game. I didn't think I'd be using it to prepare for specific games, but I would actually do my prep for a specific opponent, create a Lichess study with the prep, import the prep into Chessbook as my specific repertoire, and then just drill that. I was unlucky with my prep because my opponents kept avoiding it, but that's a completely different question. Had they entered my prep, I'm sure I would have been well prepared. So check out Chessbook, there's a link in the description. The basic version allows you to import a couple hundred moves, but the upgraded version gives you unlimited moves, and it's $5 a month, cheaper if you pay yearly. It's an excellent platform. Please let me know what you think, and yeah, the link in the description. Let's go back to the video. Thank you. Okay, the third question we have to answer is what's your rating? And it's connected to the second question. to the fourth question, the next question. Do you play online or rated over the board? If you play rated over the board, then your rating is going to influence your repertoire. If you're 2000, then you're most likely not going to be playing Latvian gambits every game. If you're 900, then you may get away with it. So if you play online, if you're not completely goal-oriented, if you're not seeking a rating increase, then you may consider playing stuff that's more fun, less serious, and less sound. And also, you may want to consider stuff that long-term isn't going to do that much for your development. Now, this is a very, very key point. So, as you know, I've been playing the London system for about 2 years. I would go bishop f4, whatever they played on move 1, I would play the London system, and I would have great results. I had like 70% with white, which is an excellent score. But as you may also know, I do not play the London system anymore. The reason is, I answered this question. So, what's my rating? I play over the board. And what are my goals, which is the last question? I want to get better. I don't really care about immediate rating gains. And even though the London system would give me immediate rating gains more likely than playing e4 or d4 or c4, I quit playing it because it's a system opening. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad opening. It means that in many London system positions, we're going to have similar structures with similar plans, and we're going to be playing the same stuff over and over again. So this position has been reached a million times. I played it in like 20 tournament games, and I could count on the fingers of one hand other positions that I've reached 20 times on move 8. So it means that if I keep playing the London, I'm going to be playing the same stuff over and over again. Now, why is that important? Why do I not play the London system anymore? I play over the board, so my opponents prepare. If I play the same stuff over and over again, it's easy for my opponents to prepare. Also, if I play an opening that cannot really branch out, then, you know, easier to prepare. What's my rating? My rating is 2000, so my opponents are good. They can prepare. What are my goals? My goal is to get better at chess, not to increase my rating. So playing the same stuff over and over again hinders me in my development because I don't get to see many different structures. It's easier for my opponents to prepare. So why would I do that? Let's compare this, like playing d4, bishop f4, to playing d4 and c4. How many positions can we reach from here? 1,000. So immediately on move 2, I'm making it much harder for my opponent to prepare, and I'm making it way more likely for me to play different structures throughout different games. Okay, now the next question is online or over the board, and that's probably very, very important. If you play over the board, then you get paired, your opponent sees the pairings, you see the pairings, you start preparing. You can see their games, they can see your games. You want as broad a repertoire as possible. So if you've seen my last 2 tournaments, I played with white. I played c4, d4, and e4 in like 5 games. I played all 3 openings. As black, I did not face the e4 more than once. I only faced it in round 1 of a tournament, so I played the Caro-Kann because my opponent couldn't prepare. Had I faced e4 once more, I would not have played the Caro-Kann. And against d4, I played knight f6 and d5. So even though I'm not well versed in all of those openings, I'm going to be playing all of them for 2 reasons. Once again, I'm playing over the board, so I want to make it harder for my opponents to prepare. Number 2, I want to play different structures. If I play e4, c4, and d4, I'm going to be seeing all of chess throughout my white games. And the same goes for knight f6 and d5 against d4. So that's the answer to that. If you play over the board, I believe you should have a broader repertoire than if you just play online. Online, nobody prepares, and basically nobody cares. Okay, now, how much time do you have? and this is connected to the last question, what are your goals? What I mean by how much time is how much time are you willing to invest in your training? And if you want to study openings, and I'm gonna do a separate video on that once again, I'm gonna redo the last video on studying openings. It's not just about opening an opening book or a database or a Lichess database and going through the moves and learning the variations. That's the least of it. That's like 1%. The most important thing is to actually play an opening and learn from your mistakes. In order to get comfortable enough to do that, you have to study games by players who play the opening. So if you're rated as high as me or higher, you probably don't just use a database to look at the variations and go ahead and play an opening. You're gonna take a player, take their repertoire, study their games, and that's going to take time. So based on how much time you have, you choose an opening which you can manage. If you have 15 minutes a day for a month, then you might get away with the Trumpovsky, with the Collie system, with the London system. But if you have 8 hours a day, you can do the Najdorf in a month. So, and there are openings that require way more time. I wouldn't dream of playing the Najdorf without very detailed preparation, again connected to the previous questions. But if you're playing over the board with a relatively high rating and you have a lot of time, then you can choose a complex opening. You can play the Spanish, you can play the Najdorf, you can play, I don't know, the King's Gambit, which requires a year to learn. So determine how much time you have and make a tier list of openings from the most complicated to the least complicated. That's not that hard to do, and you can find it online. I mean, there are some that you can study and get away with even without a deep theoretical understanding. Like, for example, the Caro-Kann. You can get away with it. It's likely that you're not going to be lost out of the opening, but if you play the King's Indian and you don't understand stuff, you're going to be lost on like move 10. So yeah. And then finally, what are your goals? Determine your goals and divide them into smaller goals. If your goal is to get better, I would say, regardless of your rating, choose versatile openings that can be dynamic, that can be static, that can have isolated pawns, hanging pawns, closed structures, completely open positions, bishop-knight imbalances, exchange sacrifices, attacking positions, defensive positions. I think that's the best way to do it. Now, one opening that stands out is the Sicilian. So my opinion is, if you want to get better, play the Sicilian if your goal is to increase your strength. If your goal is to increase your rating, play the stuff you know best. So, for example, if I wanted to reach 2100 by the end of this year, which is my rating goal for this year, I would probably be best off playing the London every game. But my actual goal is to get much better than 2100, so I'm not going to be playing the London anymore. So determine what your goals are, and based on that, choose either the stuff you know best or the stuff that's most complex, that's going to force you to learn and study and play different types of positions. So here's what I would recommend if your goal is to get better at chess. With white, play either just e4, but choose different variations, or play e4 and d4, or e4 and c4. They are very, very different, and you may be afraid to do that. It may seem uncomfortable. You may be accustomed to one of them because the other one is completely different, but force yourself to do it. Trust me, you're good enough to mix them. Okay, with black, I would advise you at least 2 different defenses against e4 and d4. So for example, Caro-Kann and the Sicilian, or e5 and the French, or something weird like the Alekhine and the Pirc. So just choose 2 completely different openings and do the same thing against d4. So for example, you could play the Queen's Gambit accepted, and you could play the Benko against d4. So or the Benoni. Very, very different, completely different types of positions. I think that's the best approach. So once again, how do you choose your openings based on your rating and everything else? Number one, if you enjoy something, you can play it. Unless your goal requires you to be way more determined and to study way more in depth and to play different stuff, okay? Choose your openings based on how much you know. If you know something well, play it. If you know something pretty poorly, play it all the same if your goal is to increase your strength. What's your rating? If you're 800, you don't need to know much. You can play weird stuff. If you're 2500, you have to know 20 moves of theory in the Catalan. Okay, if you play OTB, you're gonna have to be way more serious. If you have 15 minutes, you cannot play the same repertoire as that you would play if you had 8 hours a day. And what are your goals? Okay, so you're gonna have to answer these questions yourself, and based on your answers, choose an opening. If you need help, you can ask me, you can give me the data in the comments, and I will recommend a specific opening or a specific repertoire. So just comment below, these are my answers, what should I do? And I have specific answers prepared. Thank you very much. I hope this helps. See you soon.